Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I am Coach Les, and this is Coach Les and Sujata Against All Odds video and podcast. And we are here sharing our talents and sharing our experiences. And I am with Sujata Tiwari, who wrote this book, Against All Odds. No retakes, no manuals, real life lessons. Sujata has accumulated a wealth of experience during her life, leading to insights and knowledge that cannot be coached or taught in a class. She is a mother, a wife, a journalist, a consultant, an activist, leader, and a businesswoman, domestically and internationally. In sharing her story, Sujata strives to provide readers of all backgrounds in any part of the world with real-life examples on how to deal with the unpredictable nature of everyday life. And we are here tonight, and we are discussing the second, and we're looking at getting a little bit of a deep dive into the conversation about, can we be wronged and not fight for the positioning to be right? Looking down or looking up, whether it's to our kids or looking up to our parents. Tonight, we want to share the opportunity of training and development in today's business and family and faith, and speak about this and really take a look at the integrity that is being delivered around the world currently in some of these areas. So with that, I want to introduce Sujata and let her say hello and greet people, and I'm going to hand her the mic, and I'm going to go check on my pizza.
Coach Les makes things and doesn't, allow us to share what he cooks. That's what good cooks do, I guess. So anyway, hello Janet, hello Sulina, hello Cass, and in the audience, let me see, benevolent, healing, Gavin, welcome. And I hope that we will have a insightful and interesting discussion. So would you like to go first, Janet, and share your thoughts?
First, I've got to get to my phone.
Okay.
I was across the room.
I understand.
And, that happens. I'm preparing. I'm just finished closing another room. And, I love coming into the podcast because there's always great questions and shares in this podcast. And you haven't shared the question of the night yet. It's just starting.
Yes. So the question, I think, as Coach Les already, I think he said it just now before he went to cook his pizza or look at his pizza. So if we are wronged, then do we, try to sort of clear our positions? Do we make the effort to, see that it's right? Do we take the time and the energy? Do we look up or down depending on who we are interacting with? That is a deep question, because for me, it is always based on context and the situation. And no two situations can be alike. So, for example, if I'm wronged, I will assess the situation and make a choice whether I want to respond at all or not. Because for me, the response is important. Is it coming from a position of being defensive, or it's a position of where I'm clarifying only because for me the relationship is important and I want to, see that the relationship gets a chance. But for example, if the situation is where I know that the other person has made up their mind and nothing that I say or do is going to make a dent, I will choose to be silent and just walk away. I hope that makes
That's
sense.
called, yeah, that's called picking your battles.
Amen.
And, I think Coach Les distracted me with the pizza thing.
Yeah, I know. I was telling Coach Les earlier that, when he describes his cooking and I know what he's making, I'm like Remy, when the dog is there and the cooking is happening and they look up, will I get a bite or not? It's somewhat of that position.
So I like how you presented the question, Sujata, because, yeah, it's very much whenever there is that conflict in a relationship, picking your battles. One of the things that we have to do in life is whenever we're having to pick battles and it's the same person all the time, there comes a time you have to contemplate taking inventory of who you surround yourself with and whether or not is that relationship irreparable, or is it time to take inventory and say, you know what, this isn't working, and this is just so much conflict. It's just, or what I call too much drama. I like the simple life where you just have a communication, you have a discussion. Yes, there are times when I'll be right, but I don't have to be. It's humbling yourself because, like you said, Sujat, the relationship is important. And sometimes if that person is a little bit more emotional, they just need to be heard. And there'll be opportunity for you to correct your standing on whether you're right or wrong. It's just a matter of, is that person in a position that they're going to listen? Otherwise, you're just talking back and forth, but nobody is listening. So you do have to take inventory of the relationships that you're in. And is it reparable? Is it worth saving? Is it worth working on? And if they still aren't there in the presence to communicate with you after a long period of time, you can take some measures to where you can find a happy medium to get that communication built in the relationship. And sometimes that takes a mediator. There's just that what if question. Do I go forward in the relationship? Do I just say sever the relationship? You have to look at that and not look at it from an emotional point of view, but where you are and how it affects your mind, your just you in general. How's it affecting you mentally and physically overall? So all those things, Sujata, all those things you mentioned come into play. And I'll just turn it over back for others to share. So thank you for opening the question.
So I would like to just give a little expansion on this. If suppose I'm in the right, and I know in the back of my head that given time that I was right will be proved, I will just wait and bide my time, because the person may be emotional and may not be willing to listen, but in due course of time the person will, this whole thing will unfold, but okay, he was right. So I don't have to say a thing, I wait for my time, and when it's right, the other person can either come back and say, don't need to say sorry, but can just come back and say, yes, you were right. Or even if they don't acknowledge it vocally, they will know in their minds that I was right. So I don't have to prove every time everything what was right or wrong. Sometimes time itself will prove.
I agree with that, Sujata. The thing that I'm going to throw a curveball into here is, how many of you listening today have been 100% right in black and white on a piece of paper. You have proof, you have evidence, and yet you are wrong.
Yes.
Okay, say more, Jeanette, since you stepped up to the plate.
Well, I didn't have a good marriage, and even though I took care of the family, I had to undo the stories that were told. He got the house in the divorce. I paid for it, but he lost it. And it was my fault. And I had to correct it. Many other things, when it comes to the financial areas. And so a lot of things that he would tell people, because he lived in one state and I was 3,000 miles away. And every time I would go back, I had it in writing. He said, I never paid, I never took care of the kids. They were with me till they graduated from high school. And yet he told people that I wasn't around for them. But I was the one that made sure they graduated high school. I have all the paperwork, all the everything in writing, of what I paid for, whatever they needed, the house payments, everything. And of course, no matter what I had in writing, I had so many people saying, here's what you did, and I could show them. And still, they only believed what they were told. And that happened a lot. And it's just, so I'm 3,000 miles away. I'm doing great. It's okay. I recovered. But some people don't, and they don't have the ability to move on. And I did have everything in writing. I had all the paperwork in order. I had all the tax returns because I had to pay the taxes. So everything that I had was in writing. And sometimes people are bitter and they will hold it against you. But you just, that's when you take inventory. You just have to take inventory. And I was right. I had it in writing, and it just festered in that person so much. They were not going to budge off of their story, till the day he passed away. He stayed with his story. And, it's just very fortunate that I, in all the relationships that I built, I had a lot of friends that were there to support me. And even then, it wasn't enough. And so you have to look at some people, they just want you to be wrong. And no matter what, even if it is in writing. So there you go, Coach. And that's not all of it. I mean, there's so much, but that's just an overall of what people can do. And it's a festering in their mind and their hearts. And, it's not healthy at all. But I did have it in writing. So there you go, Coach.
And so that's one story, one example. When I look at my own life, I had in my first marriage, I had our perfect partner wish list, hers and mine, laminated together. I still have it. And 3 to 6 months after we were married, she turned into a different woman. And by George, I let her know. And we went to counseling, and I had it in black and white, and I showed it in black and white. And the interesting thing was, I was so right. I was right all the way through till the divorce. And inside of that conversation, I got to be right. Now, the question for me is, I look at that now, and in my current marriage, when I see or hear the same thing happening, I stop, I take inventory in my own mind, and I step back and go, I may win the battle here, but I'm going to lose the war. And I don't want that. So there's a new way for me to look at these conversations that we're having here. And I don't position myself, and I have friends, I've even had a coach say, Les, you got to stand up for your rights. And I look and I go, I've been through a divorce because I was so right. And I've had to walk back to that person and apologize and take 100% ownership of the divorce. And hear her say, I didn't know how to get through the wall of communication that kept coming at me. And you were right. And I didn't know how to communicate that, yes, all of those things were what brought us together. And now I wanted to create something new in a home with my husband and spend time at home. And when I heard that, I cried. And if she hadn't been engaged to be married, we would have gotten back together. And she goes, but I can't do that. And I said, I know. And I can't do that to him either. And we parted company, knowing that she still loved me, knowing that I still loved her. And it's one of the reasons he didn't like me until several years later, the shoe was on the other foot. He had changed and he did some unforgivable things, quote unquote, unforgivable wrongs. And I got to coach them. And after coaching them, he saw his error, took responsibility for it, and then ended up thanking me. And we became acquaintances. And that's what's possible in all of this. And those are the things that I think make a huge difference, because it took every bit of humility and humbleness and setting aside my ego to realize how off I was. So I just want to share that. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Selena. Hi, Selena.
Hey, Coach Les and Sister Jeanette and Sujata. Thank you so very much for this conversation. You guys present some very, very interesting perspectives, and I absolutely love it, and I'm enjoying it. I would say, as far as my contribution to the conversation, is I would kind of go along the veins of what Jeanette says. That at times when you see the relationship going in a certain direction, or maybe certain things continue to repeat itself, that you really have to stop and take inventory, right? And a lot of times we tend to look at the other person, and I believe it serves us well, maybe more so looking at ourselves. And when I say that, I'm saying that not to say that the other person doesn't have some responsibility, but I always say when we look at a relationship, that the direction that it's going, or how things are going within that relationship, even if we are 1% wrong or 1% we have to take we've contributed to the direction that it's going, we still have to take 100% ownership of that 1%. So I say that to say for myself, whenever I'm taking inventory, is always, okay, what you could have done differently, right? How did I contribute to where it is, or how things are unfolding, and what can I learn from it, and how can I do it differently or better going forward? So that's my contribution. Thank you. I pass the mic back to you, Coach Les.
Thank you, Sister Sulina. Thank you for being here. And with that, I pass the mic over to Cass. Good evening, Cass.
Oh, good evening, everyone. All right, so my mind's kind of all over the place because we can go in many directions with this against all odds conversation. The first thing I think of is Phil Collins, the song Against All Odds, and it's a perfect duet of a man and a woman who sing back and forth saying, oh, it's not going to work out. Like they have like a wall between them. But okay, so now let's move forward. I'll tell you a story. Not many people know this about me because I've always been a very high intellect business person, but always involved in ministry to a standpoint where I would choose or not choose to be, where I'd be involved. And my background went from Assemblies of God to, goodness, what did we go next? Oh, then Lutheran, then Methodist, and probably some more in between there because, sometimes your parents control where you have to be. But yeah, so Methodist, I was in like a very rural country area. And this whole concept was to build this huge church that would be tied to the school. And in the school, you could like come over there, like football games or something, come over like afterwards and have snacks and stuff. And you're part of the church, but you're part of the school. We don't really talk about church. We're all hearing and fellowship. That's the difference of how that works. But we only had 3 that participated. And I remember talking to the pastor at the one time, I'm like, oh my God, we need 4. Like, what happened to the 4th one? He's like, we couldn't get the 4th one in. And I said, okay, we're gonna fall short. We're gonna fall short in this. So, all right, so here goes my next thoughts. When I thought of Against All Odds, I thought of Isaiah immediately, because the book of Isaiah immediately follows the book of Song of Songs, right? So we'll tie this all together. And this is about kids, okay? So Isaiah, verse 1, 2 through 3. Hear, O heavens, listen, O earth, for the Lord has spoken. I reared children and brought them up, but they have rebelled against me. The ox knows his master, the donkey his owner's manager. But Israel does not know my people, and they do not understand. So I'll leave it with that. That's Against All Odds.
I thought you'd appreciate that, Cass.
Perfect.
Once in a while, even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
Crazy good.
You know, it's you know, we brought up a whole nother position to speak about, and another place for me to share a little bit of my past. When I was 7, both my parents got my parents got divorced, and both of them got remarried within a year. And I had a baby sister with my stepdad and my mom. And my stepdad and I didn't get along, and we fought, and I didn't listen. And during the course of that time, many little offshoot stories I could share, but I was not headed for a good place. And my mom called my dad, and, you know, I found this out later, and I got sent to live with my dad and my stepmom. And my sister and my former brother-in-law took me in a car with my stuff. And I remember watching my mother in the back window as we drove away. She waved once, turned around, and went to her husband, my stepdad, and daughter, and didn't look again. And I went, okay, I got thrown away. I'm now going to live with my dad and my stepmom. And my stepmom became my mom. And apart from the fact that I had to go visit my real mother once a year, which did not go well, and usually ended up only being a few days, even though they were in England and I was in France. And I come to, you know, fast forward to being an adult and going through all this training and development, and sitting down and talking with my stepmom and my dad and then my mom, come to find out that my mom was heartbroken, and she turned away because she didn't want to see her crying. Her husband, my stepdad, hugged her, and my sister ran up to her and asked, "Why are you crying, Mommy?" But I didn't see that. I didn't know any of that until much later, and it was never communicated to me. And why, and quote unquote, why should it have been, right? In the logic world, I look at it now, and when I'm coaching and when I'm in conversations with people, I say, are you kidding me? You have to communicate that as quickly as you can. You want to let all of that be known and heard and understood, not as a make wrong or a make right, but as a fact, a spoke on the wheel of the life at that moment, so that it's understood that there was emotion there. And the reasons in my head that she turned and didn't look back didn't become real reasons. You know, so for an 8-year-old, I made up all sorts of stuff. And then it got worse as I met other people that were divorced and heard horror stories. So I made my mother out to be a horror and my stepdad to be a traitor and all sorts of stuff. And, you know, I really left my relationship with my younger sister and gave her the cold shoulder, even when she came to America, and she was heartbroken. And once again, she never said anything. And I was never, nobody said, you know, nobody sat down and spoke and communicated and worked through the conversations. So for me, having this room tonight and having these conversations, my wish and hope and prayer is that people see there's another possibility that exists outside of the circle of reference and framework that you know. And if you're not able to find it because we don't it's tough for us to see behind us when we're looking forward, or to the side of us past our peripheral vision. And it's right there just outside of your view. And the way to do that is to find somebody that you can know, love, and trust, whether it's a coach, whether it's a therapist, a counselor, somebody who can weave the conversation to have you start to distinguish some of these things that happened and have you look at the other pieces. Now, some people tell me, oh, well, I've been through psych classes. I can do that. I can do a good job of looking at the other person's point of view. And I'm like, you are so in the middle of the poop. No matter where you look, it's going to have a poopy filter. Therefore, to find a third party that doesn't have the poop to support you is quintessential. And for me, it's the part that made such a difference when I had a coach back in 2002 and 2003 that said, Les, you've got to get out of your own way. And you have to understand there's a whole nother world over there of experience going on that can be so night and day different from you and your point of view and your world. So night and day different that it occurs as the black and white writing in front of you has somehow been manipulated. And people don't understand that. And my last comments to kind of throw more wood onto this fire is to say this. How many of you have written texts or written emails that have been so misread, misrepresented, misunderstood that you've spent the better part of a week, a month, maybe even a year digging out of the poop hole that happened with the miscommunication? Cass is like, yep, I'm there. You know, I've got a PhD in it.
True story, actually. They don't know.
And, you know, I tried to be clever. Here I am going through getting training as a transformational coach. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do something different with this gal who I got engaged to 3 times and got a tattoo to prove my loyalty and my love to her, because she had been so badly hurt by men in the past that she didn't trust. And right up till the bitter moment, then she would suddenly have a 360 degree plus 180 degree spin around. And I would get all my texts ready, and I would call up my sister, adopted sister, who's a technical writer, and I'd read my texts, and I'd even send them to her sometimes. And she would edit them and send them back. And I'd go, oh yeah, that sounds much better. And I'd send it. And it was still completely misrepresented, misinterpreted. And I'm looking at it going, how do you misinterpret this? And getting upset with my quote unquote fiance because of the misinterpretation. And, you know, I've got my coaches as I'm going through my training saying, Les, don't you know you never coach through text or email? I said, I'm not coaching. I'm just communicating with my girlfriend, my fiance. Yeah, but it has the same breakdown, the same difficulty. And I learned such a valuable lesson that it is, I can be holding up an orange water bottle and hold it in front of the camera. This is orange. And somebody will go, no, it isn't. It's red. And because to them it's red. And I'll hold up a cup. And my famous example is to hold up a cup that has a handle on it. And I keep the handle pointed towards me, and I hold it up and I ask the person in front of me, does this cup have a handle? And they say, no. I said, are you sure? Well, I don't see one. I said, then how do you know it doesn't have one? It could have one on this side. Well, I don't know that, and I can't answer that. I understand, but people judge and assess all the time about the other side of the cup. And people go to war over this stuff. I mean, like real life war. Countries go to war over this. So why am I bringing this lovely, warm, healthy, non-explosive topic up on a podcast, videocast on a Friday night? Because it has the potential to go boom. And I'm interested in people starting to look outside the box. What does outside the box look like? So now I've had my little tirade. Cass, since you were blinking, I'm going to hand you the mic.
I swear to God, I wasn't blinking on purpose. Someone was blinking for me. So, I mean, I have no problem speaking more, but yeah, there's more people. April is here. God, I love her. She should really come up on stage. She's always very quiet, and I adore her intelligence of not speaking. Now, me, on the other hand, I'm very outspoken. So we have like the zing, what do you call it? The yin and the yang, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. So I think I'm just proving your point from what you just said, Coach, and that's important. All right, so let's bring it to someone else, because I'm gonna start. Oh my God, I don't even know what I'm gonna do. Like, we're gonna talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. So
I love it.
You do?
It's Friday night.
Right.
It's Friday, yes. I invited April.
Go, Janet, go.
Because that's an opportunity for her to prove you wrong that she won't come up. But it's okay. We'll keep trying.
April has been on the stage before, guys.
Okay, well, it's Friday night, Coach. We want to all have discussions tonight because it's Friday. Hey, and it's a 3-day weekend for us. Yeah, so I love the shares, yes, and I lost my track of mine now that I started having fun with you guys, and so yeah, I just love the conversation, and I thank you for coming up, Michelle. And I'm going to turn the mic back to you until the thought comes back to me. Oh, you know what else, too? I love how Cass said somebody was blinking her mic. I looked at mine because I thought, you can blink someone else's mic? We're all in trouble.
I swear to goodness, that is me. Okay.
Love it.
I think it's hilarious, Cass. I just let you be with that mic thing, but I spoke for quite a while after you stopped blinking your mic. So it was, I was using the mic blink from the beginning.
I'm gonna fire someone after this.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Let me just take the heat. I did it.
Well, I'm so happy that I get to eat fresh, homemade California cauliflower crust, homemade pizza with my fun stuff thrown on top for a second period of time with all of you wonderful people. And I suddenly realized I'm the only guy in the room.
Wow.
I saw that, April.
Yep.
I saw that.
And I look at that and I go, by the way, this is the issue for me. Now she's laughing her head off.
Look at that.
Why is it an issue for you?
It's not an issue around anything being wrong for me. It's called being wrong again. I'm not even right or wrong. It's the fact that men are missing out on the ability to learn how to communicate at a whole new level. And they're so stubborn so many times with the ego of testosterone that they don't get out of their own way.
Yeah. So that's why they have this saying that you can take a horse to the water but can't make it drink. This is what it is all about. That, unless people share or unless people learn to communicate their feelings, and you are left to others' perceptions or what you see and don't have the whole picture, that's why all these problems arise of even being misread, misrepresented, because you've already made up your mind. You've only seen one aspect of it, you have not bothered to discuss it, and you are left with your conclusions, which is not the entire picture.
I mean, more and more, Sujata, I'm finding that I think when people say, Les, who are your favorite clients to work with? And it's lawyers. And I'm starting to understand why. Because if I can give them some of this outside of the box, quote unquote, thinking, they can be really, really good at their job.
Yes, because what I learned from the lawyers, and I became an uncertified lawyer, is that you don't speak so much, but you listen. And when you speak, it has to be measured. Like in the court, I was told that don't give explanations from your side. When somebody asks you a question, first try to answer just in yes and no. And when the time comes that you're asked for an explanation or a clarification, that's when you give your piece. Because when you give out information beforehand and too much of it, it goes in another direction, which is true.
It is. It is. And Jeanette, by the way, April's watching on LinkedIn, so she's watching me eat my pizza. Alone, how are you, Alone? I have not seen Alone forever and ever and a day. It's good to see you, Alone. Hopefully you'll have a moment to step up. I know you may be busy with people around you, but if you do get a chance to come up. And there is my second favorite person from India and Singapore, Dipti. Hello, Dipti. Woo woo.
Hello, Coach. Woo!
She went and got a couple hours of sleep. She went to sleep 6 hours ago.
Yeah,
How are you, Dipti?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, we're having a lot of fun. I'm so happy Alone got in here because there were no other men in here, and I was just saying I feel a little alone. And I'm just kidding.
Don't worry, yeah, I know. So I was also about to do the same thing. Kidding. You can just imagine us to be nice. So that you won't feel lonely.
Oh, no, it's all good. So the conversation that we're having is, can we be wronged and not fight for positioning to be right? When we look up to whoever it is, whether it may be a boss or to parents, or we look down when we're using the words up and down here, down to our children, in down the age world, not down as in positive or negative. And, looking at how our communication filters are maliciously setting us up for a fall many, many times, because we have so much stuff from our past that gets in the way of starting a new relationship or a new experience with somebody without cleaning our filters. And when we make our first poop pile, not understanding that it was the filters that were at fault, not the actual event. And I think that's the other thing to be responsible for in this conversation, is how many times do we take the aggression or the upset with a past situation and take it out on somebody in front of us that we've just met because they say something or do something or act some way that reminds us of somebody from the past. So that's my question. I'm going to throw it out there. Sulina, did you want to chime in at all? Or are you just having fun sipping your beverage and kicking back and enjoying?
You got that right.
TNT, it's dynamite. TNT.
Yes, it is. I'm just sitting back and enjoying the discussion. I love it.
Too funny. Too funny, too funny. All right. Well, Sujata, do you want to jump in?
I'm thinking what I can share as a real life example. And one or two things that come to my mind is, for example, because examples actually work best in real life lessons. And all the people who have read my book, there was only one person who read my book and gave me a 5-page document to read. Okay. And in all these two years plus, she was the only person who gave me a 5-page document. And in that, she literally tore me to shreds, because what she said was that she's a Christian. And so she quoted from different religions, Christian to Buddhism to others. And her statement was that for fighting for justice, I had actually wronged the rapist. So it was not my daughter who was a victim. It was the rapist who was a victim, because I went and fought for justice. And so if I am to go by religion, then I was doing something wrong for which, I would not be forgiven or would not find a place in heaven. And I can't tell you how much it is. Now, the best thing is, I always say to people is, think 10 times before you speak and think 20 times before you write. Because the spoken words may get forgotten, but the written word stays. So initially, it's like when you fall down, you get hurt. Initially, there's always some hurt, but then I slept on it, I sat on it, and I decided I will not respond to her at all. No clarification, no justification, no sharing of my thoughts, because this is a person I took out for lunch and I gave her the author signed copy, and this is what I got. So it's okay. Every author has to be, you know, able to realize that there will be critics and there will be people who will be trolling you also. So I left it at that. But it was a very sensitive book and a topic, so I just left it at that. And then shortly, she and I belonged to an organization here in Singapore, and we had a talk where I was the speaker and I was going to speak, and she was one of the members of it. And guess what? One day before the event, she came back to me and she apologized for what she had written, because she felt that she had written harshly. I had not said a word, and the apology came. And when the talk happened, which was having people from across the globe, she actually was one of the first to say that if I had not fought for justice, then there would not have been justice, and there would not have been the wrong which would have been righted, and it would not have been a lesson or an inspiration for people to stand up and fight against injustice. So you see, I didn't have to say a word. And it happened in due course of time. So the question here is, even if I get hurt, I sit on it, and then I decide whether it is worth my time and energy to actually clarify or give this thing. I don't need to. In my book, I'm very clear that I've shared each and everything, my thoughts, my emotions of all the situations, all the this thing. So after that, I really don't have to explain myself. If after reading the book, which is not just 200 pages, it's more than 300 pages, and you still don't know who I am, then there's nothing more to be said, nothing less to be said. I rest my case.
I just want to say I absolutely love that message, because I don't think many people understand how important it is. Because if you don't truly know someone, then you can either read too deeply into it, overread it, or judge it. So, but I have this friend of mine that's been fighting Parkinson's disease for like 20 years. And we went to lunch the other day, and I can't remember what I said, but it was something like super blunt and frank. And he said, "You know what, Cass? It doesn't matter what time of the day, where you are, what you say, you are always the same." And so there are other people that have their own issues, and sometimes they try to project them on you. Those are not your issues. That's theirs. Be always wise and true to who you are, to yourself. And if you are blunt and frank, that's just because you are. If you are quiet, that's just because that's who you are. And, just don't ever let anyone change your character, because, and at the end of the day, your character is inside the one who knows you the most. So I love exactly what she said. It was a perfect time.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. And Cass, did you see who popped on stage?
April did. I just felt really lonely down there, and I was like, well, I don't need to be down there. I could still listen from up here. Coach Les will let me.
Of course. Of course. And I absolutely love the I see you. Oh my gosh, that was hilarious. Too funny. And Kristen, come on up on stage, Kristen. We're having a fun chat. It's a great night. And we'll fill you in before we come and pick on you. So I'd love to share something else from Against All Odds that I think, I love the fact that the security guard who committed the crime had the audacity to get his comrades to figure out how to turn the tide on Lightning and say that it was her fault because of how she dressed, how she flirted in the elevators, and how she was, inebriated and came onto him, and that was why he did what he did between two cars on the other side of the street. And I look at that and I see this, and the thing that I want to point out is I've seen this happen in fraternities. I've seen it happen in high schools. I've seen it happening everywhere. And it's the part of the condition I call bullying, where they gather the support of the people around them to secure the make wrong, quote unquote, of the person that they're picking on. So even if the person that they're picking on has it in black and white, or has a photograph that, look, this is the original photograph, that then the remaining group say, oh, well, no, you doctored the photograph and took out the banana that we put in your mouth and replaced with a penis to try and make you look gay. in high school, which ruined the kid's reputation, which caused him to want to commit suicide. He showed up one morning in his dad's office, because his dad officed at home, with the chef's knife from the kitchen, and says, "Dad, you've got to put this in the safe with the guns. I'm no longer safe looking at this every day." And I see and I hear some of this stuff, and I put it all into this positioning of how we can use our communication to subvert other people into believing our story. And in the belief of our story, shift the narrative from something that didn't work to begin with to absolutely create a tsunami of destruction on the other side of the fence, which had nothing to do with the story in the beginning. And I think of this and go, we live in a world where we have to be so careful with our words, our languaging, our pictures that we allow people to take, because they can be doctored at any time, and crazy things can show up on social media, from pictures, photographs being manipulated, and people go, "Oh, Coach Les, you're a conspiracy theorist, aren't you?" And I shake my head and said, if you want to call me a conspiracy theorist, then go right ahead. I'm just saying that this is a possibility. And if you look at it from this possible view, it gives you another way to listen to the story and perhaps make a difference, instead of following the sheep as they run off the cliff, following the first one. April. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Sujata.
Yes. So for those who may not know the case which Coach Les is referring to, I would like to talk a little bit about it, just to tell you how it works. So I come from India, and I always say this, that I was born in the wrong country. Women in India are viewed as objects. They have culturally, socially been defined as how they should behave, dress, speak, etc., etc. So there's a whole lot of issues which we women face. In my daughter's case, it was a very difficult case because she did not remember who raped her. So the cops and the judiciary had a tough case to decide. And there was this smear campaign by the security guard, which he had. The interesting thing is that it was all a pack of lies. Nobody wanted to verify. The thing is that they all wanted to discuss and gossip about something. So in reality, it showed their mindset. Instead of coming to the aid of the victim and the victim's family, which they never did, never, not one single person stepped up from the building where I stayed or from the community where there were more than 15,000 residents. They just ostracized us, but they didn't mind gossiping with the guards or about what the guard had said. You know what won me the case in that 8-year battle was because there was something known as CCTV footage, and machines do not have the mindset of human beings where they get swayed. They just literally tell you what is black and white. And when I stood up in court and we went through the entire CCTV footage, there was nothing more or less to be said, because it was in black and white of how things transpired, and it had nothing to do with the victim, of how she dressed, what she did. The only thing which went against my daughter was that she was a professional dancer, and dancing is also frowned upon in India. So if you do classical Indian dancing, oh, then you're a good girl. And if you do Western dancing, which involves ballroom, salsa, tango, whatever you have it, it's frowned upon. So it's how you dress. If you are somebody who works at a BPO, who does late night shifts, or you're an actor, actor means an artist, an actress who lives alone and who has all kinds of late nights and all that, you're already judged and put into a box where your morality and character is questioned. So it is to do with how society and how culturally you think about women. So you don't look at them with any respect, and yet you also go and worship the female deities. So there's a huge disconnect in the society of how women are perceived. And that was the only thing about my daughter, that she had drunk wine, so she was okay, not in her senses, and she was weak enough that when she was banged on her head, she lost consciousness. So that was the only fault. But the smear campaign that happened, no matter how much I tried, I could never get that out. I had to fight, and I did fight. But once it was written in the paper, the narrative went through. It's just that I still went ahead and fought for justice, and I did get justice at extreme cost, but I was helped by God, not by human. Of course, the human angels were there with the cops who stood by me rock solid, and the lawyer who fought my case. And it's ironic, but the lawyer from my side, who was state represented, was a guy, and the rapist lawyer was an English speaking woman who just went after the mother, who dared to fight for justice, went after my daughters and the character, etc., etc. But this case has played a huge thing in my life because that's when I met God. I mean, I'm not born a Christian, but I do share my spiritual experience. And I always say this, that it's not your family, it's not your friends, it's not your society who comes to your rescue. It's random strangers with their kindness who come to my rescue, like the cops. And that's why I dedicated the book to them, because I know that they held my hand when I was suicidal, when I was going through 8 years, when I was awake up at nights and I could not share with my family because I was trying to protect the family from getting stressed. So I took all the stress on me. So it was huge learning. I didn't give up. I didn't go to therapists and counselors, didn't get antidepressant pills and all. That is why I wrote the book and put it out there as an inspiration that if I could do it, everybody can, and we must stand up against injustice. I rest my case. Thank you.
Whoever wants to come off mic and have a chat, go for it. Oof, mic drop, Sujata.
Yes, because it takes a little time to process, and I've been told that I say a lot of things when I do speak.
That you do. That you do. And, but it also leads the discussion when you have a discussion, or when you want to make sure that you're on point with your discussion. That's why I always encourage people to have a pencil and paper, and the thoughts that came in, you're trying to relate that to the logic. You're trying to answer the question. And sometimes it just more comes out and it helps the conversation.
Yes.
Dipti, I saw you flash your mic. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was totally able to relate with whatever Sujata said. Even before the one where the man was accused of, that also I was able to relate with, and also the present scenario where her own daughter was facing such things. I was able to relate with whatever she said. And yes, women are still judged based on those things. They are kind of Western. They are immediately judged, they judged to be bad, and when they are Indian, they are good. but dress or whatever you do outside cannot show a person's character. You cannot judge a person's character based on how they dress or how they interact with people or what they like, and how they are, and how that personality is. Like, you cannot judge a person by the outer thing. You can only judge a person by their character, or the way they speak, maybe. And you can discern using your intuition. You cannot judge people by their liking, or when they are into Western dance or Western dressing. So I'm able to get all those things. I'm able to relate with the same things. So both the sides. Like, actually, from what I have observed, like, both the genders face the problems. Not this judging when it comes to Western thing. Maybe when it comes to Western dressing, men are not judged. Women are only judged. But when it comes to when they are kind of when a complaint of sexual harassment or rape has been reported, both the genders kind of face the problem. One side, female kind of females are not trusted, and even if they tell the truth, that doesn't come out. Like, they don't trust, and then, like, they kind of they are grilled to see whether they are telling the truth. And on the other hand, males are not trusted. Like, even if the male is innocent, and if the male does not do any wrong, even he is not trusted, even he is being grilled. So both the genders are facing this problem on on their own thing. Like, on one side it's the female, on the other side it's the male. So yeah, that I'm able to see both the points from the previous thing as well as these. So I was able to relate with whatever Sujata was saying. So
You see, in India, and this is all factual, this is nothing which is coming out of my head. You can always go and search for it. In India, nuns have been raped.
yeah,
Were they wearing, had it anything to do with the clothes that they're wearing? Definitely not drinking. So why have nuns been raped? And little babies as old as 6 months have been raped. So it has got nothing to do with how you dress and what you do. It's to do with control, and it's to do with lust, and it's to do with the leeway that the society gives men, that you can do and get away with it. It's as simple as that.
very true, man. Very true. I'm able to relate with all these things, and I used to think like this. So, like, I mean, I still think like that. Yeah, even nuns, they cover everything, and even a woman wearing burqa, Islamic, from the Islamic religion, even she covers everything. Like, they cover everything from the top to bottom. Yet, those women are also being looked at by men with lust in their eyes, and also they go to the extent of getting raped. So it just doesn't have a role to play in the thing. It's all something that our hormone does to us, and it is something that happens in our body, and it is up to the human to take control of it. Like, bring it under their own control and their mentality. So even in my experience, I have had men look at me with lust in their eyes. Especially when I was 16 years old and 19 years old, at that time. But I wouldn't wear even transparent, dresses. It was all fully covered. I was fully clothed and covered, like whatever should be covered, everything was covered. Yet, they were kind of looking with lust in their eyes, and that really sent a shudder down my spine. So it was really like horrifying. The looks that those men give, when they have lust in their eyes. So I'm totally able to relate with whatever Sujata said. So it's a nice conversation, yeah. And getting a lot of insights out of these. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Coach.
Oh, always, Dipti. Always, always, always. Well, I think we've come to a resting point. So I'd love to just do a quick pull to refresh and have everybody say or share anything that they want to share before we wind down for the evening, and wish everybody a phenomenal Labor Day weekend. So with that, I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down. Sister Jeanette, is there anything you would like to share to complete?
Coach, when it comes to this podcast with you and Sujata, nothing is ever complete. You get us all riled up and then you say, okay, it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Let's reel them in.
Then people come back.
Exactly. And I hope they all come back, because there's always such great shares. So I really enjoy the podcast, and I'll keep inviting people because I want to hear what other people have to say. So thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, so I would love to hear the other people share whatever they heard. At least have some final thoughts.
Perfect. All right. Well, with that, we'll pass the mic to Cass.
Okay, so I totally love the dancing analogy, which is heartbreaking at the same time, because what I heard is your family member loves to dance, but it's not accepted in where you are from. So I would say get on more on this app and have fun. Let's do some more dancing. And everyone else, it was a beautiful night. I really appreciated everyone speaking. I hear everything most of the time, unless I have to take a slumber. But yeah, this was like super, super fun with the dancing and stuff tonight. So
Thank you so much, Cass. And it's always a pleasure to be in a room with you, hear you, speak with you, and dance in the conversation with you. So thank you. Thank you for the dance. And now I pass the mic over to Michelle. Come on, Michelle, quit playing on LinkedIn and YouTube and come back and say cheerio.
No, I'm watching you on YouTube.
I know you are. I know.
What happened was I was scrolling, right? I'm like, I was see if there's any crafts. I'm into crafts, you know, craft tutorials, right? I'm like, and you pop out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, that's right, he's on, they're on. Oh my goodness. I love this discussion. It is this is really awesome. You were talking about how Sujata, I can't say your name, Sujata, I'm sorry.
Sujata.
Sujata.
Oh, I'm gonna be embarrassed. Oh my gosh, sorry. Sujata, you were saying that the women have no rights and women are not appreciated in your country. And it's sad. It's heartbreaking. I've been my daughter's in the background. Sorry.
It's all good.
She wants her dog. I know that ever since my husband's been gone, I had a new status, single and everything. And I've noticed a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of scammers, a lot of everyone who are not real. And I'm like, leave me alone. I'm just saying the world has changed and men do not respect other women. I don't really care. It's sad. I feel bad I feel bad for the women in India. Society has it just hasn't. There's no integrity. There's no integrity for women. There's not. It's changed. I never seen anything like this in my life. Just I'm sorry. So I never seen anything like this in my life. How this could ever even happen, and I was married for 8 years, and I was loved, and I was everything to him, and I was taking care of everything, and I didn't even know, and like I haven't seen anything like this. There's no one like my husband. My husband used to go outside and open a woman that was in front of me, open a door for her just to be gentle, be nice. But I haven't seen anyone where's the respect, and there's no integrity. I'm sorry, my 2 minutes are up.
No, what I would like to say here is that it's something when it comes to men and women and how they look at each other. We have challenges as women across the globe, but some more in certain specific countries like India, Afghanistan, Iran. There are many places where women have challenges. I know in Iran there are qualified doctors, professionals, and all, but they have no rights. They cannot even ask for a divorce. So it's not that women only in India, but in India it's more so because you're supposed to follow a certain code of conduct as dictated by society, and I would say basic human rights are not given to them. So yeah, that is what I would like to highlight, that in India it's a different whole scene. In India, for example, I cannot even leave my hair open and not have a stranger walk up to me and say it's against the culture. Now you can imagine in today's day and age, somebody says that to me, despite the fact that the two gentlemen who were with me gave that guy right, left, and center. That's a positive thing. But it's very ironical when all the Hindu deities of female goddesses, they all have their hair open, and I was fully dressed. My only thing was that I'd left my hair open. So if that disturbs you, that's not my problem, is it? It's a man's problem.
Exactly. Sujata, I have a question. I
Yes.
watched a documentary that wasn't there a woman's island just for widows? Like they go there, they blame the widows for everything, and didn't they cast them out too?
Yes, so in the olden days, olden days, I'm talking of quite olden times, there was a time when widows were burnt at the funeral pyre of their husband. Then it progressed to women had to wear only white, shave their heads, and be, uh, you know, cast into a room where they would be served certain kind of food, not every kind of thing that you can have of, not have any kind of a life. Right? It progressed to that. And even now in today's modern society, there are times where in gatherings, in social celebrations like weddings or any kind of a event, that widows are not allowed to partake in certain ceremonies. It still happens. So there is a whole lot of thing out there which happens even today. While we all want to go to the moon and the Mars, my question is, why don't we first fix things of the planet, then want to go to moon and the Mars? But then I'm outnumbered here in my thought process.
All right, and we pass the mic to Dipti for final comments.
Yes, of course. Whatever Sujata said was totally, relatable. Yeah, and the practice of sati was mentioned. Yes, it used to be, in the olden days. Even now, like the one where she said, like, where widows are not, encouraged to participate in the gathering, in the auspicious gathering. The same thing happened in my parents, like when my parents were, even in my parents' marriage, when they were getting married, even during that time, like my dad's aunt, one of my dad's aunt was a widow. So even though we are Christians, my mom's mother was, even though she was a born again believer and stuff like that, she behaved in a way like just like how the Hindus would behave, like not accepting them into the 1 minute. Just one.
Mm. So, Sujata, any final thoughts or words for you?
Sorry, I couldn't complete it. Like even in that wedding, they kind of behaved in that kind of a way. Like she was kind of biased against her because she was a widow. So like I was able to relate with the same thing. So these are kind of, but the society is changing. But a lot has in the younger generation. But a lot has to change and improve. So that is what I wanted to say. And I just wanted to ask, where can I get this book from? Like, is it available on Amazon?
Yes.
Yes, Dipti, I will send you the link on WhatsApp. It's available in Amazon India also. So I will send you the link.
Okay. Thank you.
Just put it into the 24-hour Bible study WhatsApp, Sujata, because Dipti just joined.
Okay, I shall do that.
So, yeah, that is all. My comments on this. Yeah, and thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, ladies. Thank you for everything. I do hope this had a little bit of fun, had a little bit of laughter, had a few tears, and I think it was definitely a great evening, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to take a moment now to just play a little something, and then we'll shut down the room. I'm going to start by shutting down the podcast, the video cast. So here we go.